Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pedagogy in Practice. In this video, I'm going to be talking about collaborative documents, and in specific, we're going to be using Google Documents to talk about it. Now, before I get started, let me go ahead and mention a couple of things. Down in the YouTube description, you can always jump to specific time markers in the video if there are specific elements that you would like to learn about, so you can just skip ahead if you need to. Additionally, please remember to subscribe to the Academic Technology YouTube channel. We'll put a link here in this video so that you can click it and go straight to it. And with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, so I thought the best place to start would be exploring a theoretical foundation. And really for this, I'm going to talk about two things: social learning and active learning. So let's go ahead and look at those. So first, what is social learning? Social learning essentially states that learning is a cognitive process which occurs in social contexts and can happen through observation, modeling, and even with direct instruction. Now, a lot of the time when it comes to social learning theory, right, we need to think about sort of modeling behavior. And I always like to sort of picture, like the Labrador who's teaching, or the Golden Retriever who's teaching their pups how to walk downstairs, right? By modeling the behavior first as the pup watches, and then after a few tries, the pup then tries it itself and then makes it down the steps, right? We see it a lot all the time with kids too, whether that's, modeling shaving or doing all sorts of other activities. So let's go ahead and look at some of the key aspects of social learning theory. First, social learning theory states that learning is a cognitive process which occurs in social contexts. Straight from the definition, right? Pretty straightforward. It also states that learning happens through observation of behavior and of consequences. So it's not just about, watching the behavior and the success of it, but also what happens in that aftermath. And then, of course, modeling is another aspect of it, which is observation, extracting information from those observations, and making decisions about the performance of the behavior, aka modeling. Now, when it comes to additional key aspects of social learning theory, there are two more that I'd like to state. One, reinforcement plays a role in learning, but it's not solely responsible for it occurring, right? And then also, the learner is not passive, which leads us right into another theory that is directly associated with this, right? So, what is active learning? Active learning is operationally defined and is differentiated from passive learning. So, as it states, a lot of times, active learning is typically defined as being not passive. But in Petrus's article, he actually outlines several key behaviors that are indicators of active learning in students. And I'd like to look at those now. So what are the behaviors of an active learner? First, they ask questions for clarification. They provide examples, right? And they basically reason out things and provide rationale. Additionally, they challenge ideas and procedures and content relationships and try to understand the dynamic and interplay between concepts and ideas. And they also sort of self-conduct follow-up learning sessions. They do additional reading, they discuss the topic, maybe they do experiments on their own, right? And they try to apply what they've learned wherever they can. Additional behaviors of the active learner include things like they connect what was recently learned to what was past learned. So they try to synthesize concepts and understand the dynamic and interplay between those things. They also attach skill development to what is learned. So they actually try to apply what they've learned and go out and do it themselves in some form, at least to whatever extent they can. They also discuss and validate thought processes by articulating and discussing topics with others, right? So they really get into the material. And because they sort of discuss, anytime we articulate what it is that we understood something to be, there's typically, a dynamic involved where we learn about, is our understanding correct of what we took away from that? So those are some of the behaviors that active learners do. And a key aspect is also they maintain an enthusiastic attitude about learning. They're excited and passionate about it. Okay, so up next, I would like to show you how to actually apply Google Documents in Pedagogical Application. Okay, So when it comes to the pedagogical application of using collaborative documents for the benefit of your learners in your class, whether that be face-to-face, online, synchronous, or asynchronous, I wanted to go over a little bit of how I like to use them and ways that you can. So the first way that you can use collaborative documents deals with activities requiring collaboration. Whether that be face-to-face or online, anytime you have something that uses collaboration, or maybe it's a group project and you want them working together on something, you can use a collaborative document. Another idea is to use them for asynchronous group projects. Oftentimes, students that enroll in asynchronous courses are, they have a full-time job elsewhere, they have to work in the evenings, or maybe they can't always coordinate their schedule to meet a specific class time. By using collaborative documents, you actually enable them to contribute to group projects over a given time span, right, with their classmates. And so that's really beneficial to them as well. And the way that I most frequently use them is I use them in synchronous Zoom as in-class activities. So how does that look if I use them as an in-class activity? Before I get into showing you actually, the mechanics of setting up a collaborative document and using it, let me go ahead and the first thing that I do is I create the collaborative document itself, right? And I get it all set up. And in the next segment of this video, I'm actually going to cover how I approach setting it up. But once I get the document set up, I also enable it so that anybody who has access to that link can actually edit the document. And that's a crucial step, because if you don't do that, they can't participate, they can't collaborate with anyone. So that falls on you, the document creator, in order to enable that. Once I have that enabled, I then copy the link. Now, once I copy the link, that is where I then share it into the Zoom chat that then goes out to everybody in the class, right? So they're still also in the main session of my Zoom. I provide them the link to the Google Doc in the chat. Most of them are able to click on it and go to it. For those which occasionally are unable to click on it, I just tell them to highlight the link, paste it in their URL bar in their browser, and that'll take them straight to the document. Now, after I've done that, I've shared it to my class, right? And that's just what that graphic represents, is I've shared it to the class as a whole, right? They all have access to this document now. Then I put the students in their breakout rooms. Now, because they have access to the document already, once they're in their breakout rooms, they're already in the document. And the really nice thing about it from the faculty perspective, from my perspective, is that I actually can hop onto the document myself and I can see who's actively participating on that document. I can see how many cursors are moving on the document. I can throw in questions myself and I can get responses. I can guide them on that document. And so it's a really powerful thing, because it sort of reattaches to active learning, right? They get engaged, they start questioning things, they start trying to provide rationale for why things are happening, and that's all has to do with the course concepts. And at the very end, when all is said and done, I have this really cool artifact that shows me exactly all this work that they've done, and for future classes I can even use some of that to sort of help guide them, right? And I get a really good sense of what the students are learning about the material at the same time. So up next, I want to go ahead and show you how to set up collaborative documents using Google Docs. So in this segment of the video, I would like to show you actually how to create the collaborative documents. And for that, I'm going to go straight to Google Drive at drive.google.com, and I'm going into my account. So once I am in my Google account, it's really nice because up in the top left-hand corner here, in my Google Drive account, I have this nice little plus button. And I simply click that plus button, go down to Google Docs, click that, and then it's actually going to create a Google document that I can now use as my collaborative document, right? Now, there are a couple things that I typically do before I get set up. First is I give it a title. So in this case, I'm just going to name it Collab Doc, right, for the sake of the video today. Now, there are a couple things that I need to consider that I'm going to tell you to consider, because I've learned over time that if I just give them this link and I don't really specify where they're supposed to do stuff on the page, it can get really messy, right? And sometimes students, it's hard to see who's writing what, or they're typing over each other. So one thing that I really like to do is when I create a Google document, I come up to the Insert button here in Google Docs, and I just sort of create some tables. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll do it a 2x2 table. Now, if they're working in groups, which is typically what I have them doing, right, I'm going to go ahead and tell them to give me their group name. So in my class, which is a Harry Potter theme, they often come up with some pretty creative names that are, of course, Harry Potter themed. You know, something like Bakersfield Bludgers, or Happy Hippogriffs, or Snape's on a Plane. That was one of the most recent ones, right? And so they have fun kind of generating their team name. Then I also tell them, okay, now let's go ahead and tell me the members of your group. So not just the team name, but who's part of this group, right? Is it Joe? Is it Sally? Is it Sue? Right? Who's on the group? And then I'll typically do something where I'll merge the cells, right? So, oops, sorry about that. Let me go ahead and just say, let me highlight those cells, and then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to scroll down and just say Merge Cells. So now that's one. And then this is really where the content of the activity is going to go, right? This is where they're going to collaborate with their group. Now, one thing that I like to do is I provide space by using these tables for each of the different groups. So let's say that I have, we'll just say, 25 students in the class, and I'm going to have 5 students per group. So I can simply just create 5 spaces for them by highlighting this, and then I'm just going to come down below, and I'm just going to, I copy it, and then I just copy and paste 5 different times the groups. Now, once they get here onto the document themselves, they actually, they hop into a table and they each claim their table, and then they get to work on it. And it's really nice because even if one group is sort of struggling with the concept and I'm in the breakout room with them and I'm talking with them, I can say, well, what is group 1 doing? And then they can actually scroll up the document to see, and it sort of generates discussion when I'm in the breakout room with them. So I really like, this is the part that I get set up prior to the start of class. Now, in order to give them a link and to give them, I need to go up to the top right-hand corner here, click Share, and then it's going to pull up that window and it's going to load. And then you'll see down here below, there's actually this Get Link, change to anyone with the link, and I need to click that. Now, once I click that, you'll notice that over here in the center, I have this sort of button that says Viewer. If I select that drop-down arrow, I can actually select Editor. That changes this link so that anyone who gets the link is actually going to be an editor on the document. And now I simply copy that link, and that becomes the link that I paste into the Zoom chat that I then share with everybody before putting them in their breakout rooms, as I modeled in my process in the prior segment. So now I can say Done, and that is the essence of using collaborative documents. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Pedagogy in Practice on collaborative documents. Please remember to subscribe to the Academic Technology channel. We will put a link right here below in the lower right-hand corner that you can, it'll be an icon of our Academic Technology logo. You can click on that, and it'll take you to subscribe to our channel. That's it for now. Talk to you next time. Bye.